And you are trying to do the other recording, huh?
Yeah. So this is recording
Th-
started.
This is proper recording?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So, hi, thank you so much, guys, for joining the session. My name is Rishikesh Trivedi, and obviously, the other person over here in the photograph is Hemant Jain. We do believe that we have a gift for you, and let's hope that over the next 1 hour as well, at the end of it, you may still believe that it was a gift for you. Thank you so much. Hemant, you want to start off?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rishikesh, and thank you everybody for coming. We will dive right in. So what we have invited you today all is a webinar of an hour where we are going to share some information, trigger some questions. A lot of you already know me as the uncomfortable coach. So there is going to be some good amount of uncomfortable questions being asked, some uncomfortable revelations, which should trigger a lot of self thought, self conversations. मैं और मेरी तनाई अक्सर ये बातें करते हैं. So a few more questions for those moments for you. So that's where we are going. That's the objective of today. Raise a few questions and get you to start thinking of it. We share the Lego blocks with you. Subsequent to this, if you want to take it forward, we are going to have a workshop by the end of this month, which will be getting hands-on into a structured thinking about those questions that we are creating today, that we are raising today, and then uh, creating a DIY, like do it yourself, or if there is somebody who needs, okay, we need some hand-holding help, then we have a 1 year journey to walk along with them. So kind of setting the expectations right there. And yes, Baba Moshe, zindagi badi honi chahiye, lambi nahi. Golden words said way back in time, but something we all live by. As we grow, I won't say older, but more matured, it starts making a lot of sense to us. And we keep thinking more and more about it. But of course, there are, of course, other things like always be ready, always live in the way that death can never be a surprise or find you unprepared. uh, all these are about how short and how temporary life can be, how things can change in a moment's notice. But with that perspective, let's. I have a few questions for you. If you have a pen and paper, write down those answers. Basically, the answers will be numbers, so you will write down those numbers. If not, just open up your mobile phone and punch in your answers in a WhatsApp message. The first question: your age. How old are you? You need to just keep it with you. You don't have to share on the platform here or with anybody here. Just keep in mind your age. The next one: how old is the oldest relative or a person you know? Someone very real, someone you know personally, not news and all that. So the oldest person you know, how old they are. That's another number. The third: when do you plan to retire? Each one of us has been through a career and its ups and downs, and we have these uh, sometimes fancy ideas about early retirement. Sometimes we are clear that we are going to work till a certain age. It could be a combination of I want to retire at this age, but probably I'll need to work a little longer. So it could be a combination of that, but a number that you have in mind where you would ideally like to retire. So that's a third number that you have in mind. And last and foremost, when do you think you will leave the world? So when do you think death would come knocking to your door and that would be the end of life? So that's the last number. It's about your lifespan. Now, with these four numbers in mind, let's do a bit of calculation. So the first thing, the first question is how many years to your retirement? That's the retirement age which you had in mind minus your current age is how many years to retirement. Very quickly, do that math. And then, of course, how long will be your retired life, which is your expected lifespan minus the retirement age. That will give you how many years of retirement do you plan to enjoy. Two very important numbers that you have got. And the big question now: what is your readiness percentage for your retirement? For whatever span of time you see that coming up ahead. It could be in 10 years, it could be in 15 years, it could be in 5 years or 1 year, depending entirely on when you want to retire. But are you ready for that length of time that is going to be your retirement period? So that's the question I'm going to leave you with. But of course, going back to our dear Anand, who said, "Zindagi badi honi chahiye, lambi nahi." But the fact of the matter is, even that is changing because the world is changing. Social dynamics are transforming. Our exposure to people and the way of working, the way of living, ideas, mentalities, cultures, everything is changing. Our exposure is wider. We think about life very, very differently. Technology is changing. In just our own lifetimes, we have seen technology transform from the typewriter, which some of us have used in our childhood, right to the handheld devices, our mobile phones, our smart watches, which can practically do a lot of things that the mobile phones are doing. And we are pretty much already seen some of the experimental models and working prototypes of wearables, where your spectacles and the screen and the lenses become the screen. And yes, we have also just this week heard about Neuralink, Elon Musk company, already implanting the chip in the first human. So we're practically there where the devices would no longer be outside, but they get inside your head. So technology is changing a lot. All this, if you look at it over the last 200 years, I mean, right from 1800s to year 2012, that's what the data shows, the average life expectancy across countries, across the world has been steadily increasing. Like even if you see right from the red line to the green line, India was near the 25 mark in terms of life expectancy in 1800s. By 2012, we had already reached very close to 70. Now, remember, this is the average life expectancy, and we all know the bell curve. While the average would be determined by the crowd in the middle, you always have your outliers who live much longer. I'm sure you know who would live longer. People living in leading cities who have very less pollution, great lifestyle, better healthcare facilities, better standard of living, people living in leading cities of the world, maybe it's US, whether it's London, Dubai, the major metros of India, you are in a better place with better facilities, a better standard of living, which will definitely already give you a longer life than the average numbers. All this contributes to a much longer life. And the centenarian, a person living above 100, I would say just take a guess as to the number of centenarians across the globe right now. Take a guess, put it in the chat window. How many people do you think are there in the world right now who are above the age of 100? And these are worldwide figures. So you can take a big guess. Do I see numbers in the chat coming up? Okay, Paresh saying 1,000. Okay, Sandeep 5,000. Or a bit. Priya says a whole village in Japan. Anand says 100,000. Great. Fantastic numbers up there. Well, let's look at the statistics. There are 500,000 people aged 100 and above. So 500,000 people, more than 500,000 people. And these are 2020 numbers. We all know what happened after 2020. So in 2020, we had already reached 500,000 people above the age of 100. So the chances of some of us, at least the healthier ones, living up to the age of 100 is now very, very real. It's not a distant dream. It's not a possibility. It's a very real thing. In fact, the Japan village that you mentioned, Okinawa, there are four other places in US, Costa Rica, Greece, and Italy. These are places which have been termed the blue zone. There, living beyond the age of 100 is normal. It's just normal. It's not an exception. I mean, they don't even probably celebrate now when someone crosses 100 because every other old person is crossing 100. They are expected to cross 100 because that's the norm of their society. There are places like that in the world. So the sum total of all this conversation is that uh, the retired life we were thinking about, the life or future that we were looking at, is going to be far longer than we assume. So our actions today need to be in cognizance of the future needs, and they are for a longer term. Well, this means we need to recalculate our simple calculations. Once again, think how long do you practically think you will be living? This number might have changed with all this data that has been shared with you. And depending on that, now tell us how many years to your retirement. You're probably still thinking of the same retirement age. Then how many things to your retirement? And this number is going to change from your retirement age to the life expectancy. You have a much longer retirement period ahead of that. Now that changes everything, because this changes the way you have been looking at life in the future. This changes the way you have been planning for your future, the way you have been planning for your retired life. Just imagine an additional 10 years of your life gives you an additional about 90,000 hours, 87,000 hours. Assuming one third you are sleeping, you still have 60,000 solid hours of daytime, of day life, of awake time in your control now. Have you thought about what you are going to do with that? Because if you haven't, you're going to have a very frustrated 60 hours, 60,000 hours to manage. And we all know that it takes, I mean, we have heard about this 10,000 hours to master a skill. Of course, we live in an age where you do a course on Coursera for 2 hours and say, I've learned something. But to really master it, take 10,000 hours. Imagine what you can do with an additional 10,000 hours. Use 10,000, additional 60,000 hours. Use 10,000 to master a skill. Use another 20,000 to utilize it. You've got 30,000 still balance. Learn another skill, utilize it. A whole lot can be done with that. And that's the gift of time you have. But how you choose to use this and structure the time that you have got on hand, the one which you knew you had and the one which you probably just discovered that additional time you have got, how do you structure and use that time is at the heart of your response to living till 100. How are you going to deal with all that time to make your life better, simpler, happier, more fulfilled, rather than be frustrated because of the long time when you don't know what to do? Well, this is another beautiful thing which, okay, before it disappears, when we operate with the belief of a longer life and a longer term, we build beautiful cathedrals, which is, of course, a metaphor for great things in life. But when we think short term, when we think fiscal quarter to quarter, we build ugly shopping malls. A violinist, an artist has said that, and it's pretty deep. Well, here's another perspective on time. We've talked about a very long or a very large amount of time available. Let's see what are we going to do with that time. This is a statistic or a study of how people spend their time over their time lifespan, and this is only till 100. So beyond, sorry, only till 80. So beyond 80, you can just extrapolate. And as you see, two lines are actually on a rise from the 30s right up to your 80s, which is the time you spend with yourself, the time you spend alone. मैं और मेरी तन्हाई अक्सर ये बातें करते हैं. And of course, the time you spend with your partner. As this time is going to form the significant portion of your life in future, you really need to pay a lot of attention to this. You really develop this relationship, not just with your spouse, but with yourself. What do you do when you are left alone? What do you do when you are spending time with yourselves? If it's only flicking through social media feeds, you're not really spending time with yourself. What do you do with yourself is a key question. And of course, time with your spouse. But also pay attention to the time which is reducing. Time with family, kids, friends, co-workers, all this is going to reduce in future. Do you want some of that to be retained? Do you want some of that to actually increase? Then you will have to put work and effort towards it, because naturally it won't increase, it will actually go down. So that's another perspective for you. You will have much more time, but less time from different people. You'll have a lot more time with yourself. And that's why I think Sheryl Sandberg, former CEO of Meta, she had said, the most important decision you will make in your life is who your partner is. It's a very significant decision, not just because you're going to spend a lot of time with your partner, but also because a lot of your decisions about your life are going to be in conversation with them, in alignment with them. So your happiness is absolutely intricately and intimately linked to your partner. Extremely important. Well, moving on, all this conversation that we have had, the facts and figures and perspectives I am giving to you, is all directed towards this simple concept that you will need to reconfigure your time, the way you look at time, the way you manage your time, the way you have planned your time. You'll have to reconfigure the time, and you will have to reconfigure your mindset, not just towards time, but your life in an entirety. You would have to relook, reevaluate, and reinvent your entire life from scratch. Time spent alone, time spent with partner, a very significant thing. And this brings us to a concept called ikigai. I'm sure most of you, in fact, all of you, would have already read about ikigai, would have probably talked about it, wondered about it, because thanks to WhatsApp and LinkedIn, this concept has been talked about significantly a large number of times. What we want to talk about today briefly is then one of these four elements: what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. If one of the things is missing, what do you feel? So let's say you everything is fine, but you don't love what you're doing. Often happens early in the career when we pick up the path that just happened to be with us. Like, I've done my engineering, really never loved engineering, but then did my MBA, and then I have done jobs which are probably not related to my engineering or the MBA. So interesting things. But if what you love, this portion is missing, what you have is what you see, the small triangular portion below the word ikigai. You're comfortable, but you have this feeling of emptiness. The exact opposite. Everything is fine, but you're not being paid for it. Then there is delight in what you are doing, but there is no wealth. Oh, that's a scary situation. Similarly, you could look at the other areas also. In a sense, if you are experiencing any of this, you're comfortable, but there is feeling of emptiness, there's satisfaction, but feeling of uselessness, and so on. You have one of those areas, one of those circles of ikigai missing. I think it's important that when we, I think when we are nearing the half point of our life, we become more attuned to what is the meaning of life. Why are we doing things? We want satisfaction from doing things, and not just that I have a job, I get my paycheck, I'm not worrying about whether I'm happy in my job or not. Being happy in the job, being satisfied with the job actually becomes very, very important. Or being happy or satisfied with whatever you might be doing, work, non-work, you want to feel really fulfilled by that. That becomes important. And when you look at your second half of life ahead, which now is going to be longer than you thought it would be, you can't be doing things where you are not going to be happy. You have to be sustainable, you have to be happy, it's got to have meaning for yourself and for others. So it will be important to actually spend time in figuring out your ikigai. So that's going to be very important. And with all these thoughts, with all these perspectives and scenarios, Rishikesh and I got talking about this concept, and Rishikesh has been working on it for quite a long time. I got introduced only last year, but somewhere we thought we had to take this to the world, and that's where the Centennial journey was born. And at this point, I just invite Rishikesh to talk more about this. Over to you, Rishikesh.
Uh, Thank you, Hemant. So, Hemant, we will just keep it in the previous slide for a minute or so longer. So, thanks, Hemant, for this wonderful introduction and the data and the statistics. Does anybody have any comments to make at this point in time before we move forward? Did any one of you think about such a thing? Any comments at this point in time that you might have or thoughts?
I'm sure you're covering it somewhere, but I think it's also interesting to see, how the profiles of the kind of work that we will do will evolve over a period of time. And, you already might be seeing some initial sort of trends dots that you might want to connect and see how not just how long people will start to work, but what is the nature of work which will evolve, over 60, or that might be an interesting perspective to explore.
Correct. Excellent point, Anup. There is a brief touch upon that aspect of it in the webinar today. Obviously, it will get further taken up in the workshop and then later in the 1-year program. Any other points, from anybody else? Okay, so just to give you a background for others who don't know, some people like Anand and Sandeep who know me really well, uh, so they know, my mindset in terms of how I think and all, almost 10, 12, 14, 15 years back, possibly, I have always been clear in my life that I'll live 100 years, right? And personally, I have been trying to work on personal frameworks and various thoughts in terms of how will I live my 100 years life and all the rest of it. Multiple brainstorming sessions, with myself. Obviously, it was not that I could go out and research with somebody saying, hi Sudhendu, what do you think? What do we do for the next 100 years, kind of a thing. So it was very lot of introspection, got exposed to multiple elements of knowledge during my early childhood, and this Sandeep obviously knows that I used to take even yoga classes when I was in NITI, right? So I used to do morning yoga, not just do yoga, I used to take yoga classes. I'm a certified yoga teacher as well, correct? So there has been a lot of churn in my mind before we did this, and then around 8 months or so back, I came across a book called The 100-Year Life, and obviously I immediately bought it, read through it. It helped me structure a lot of things which were all hazy in my mind, right? Because when you're trying to build something over a 10, 12, 15-year period, and then suddenly somebody provides certain basic elements to it, changes significantly, right? And I was able to, quickly fit in a lot of things which I was not able to fit in a certain shape and form. Okay, so and then in one of our alumni meet, met up with Hemant again after such a long time, and I thought we could genuinely do justice to what was always in my mind, and what I have been thinking now that in my mind I am pretty clear from a certain standpoint. I thought it was time for us to take that out into the world and possibly try and help other people as well, to take this up. Okay, so again, Hemant, next one. So just a quick one. We are gonna, in the webinar, we will only be throwing Lego blocks. We are trying not to structure anything. Okay, just throw them open. In the workshop, we will provide certain structured step-by-step processes that can be done. And then for those who get stuff from IKEA, but they still call the carpenter and say, yaar, aake bana ke bhi jao, right? For those, there is the journey of a 1-year period where me and Hemant will help them structure their 100-year journey, right?
Okay. Is it audible what I'm saying?
Yeah, yes, Sudhendu.
Right. So no, I've been listening. I had some high schoolers in my car. I was driving them to an event, so I wasn't saying anything. But yeah, it's very relevant whatever you've said so far. Sitting down and trying to find out the purpose of your life at almost the halfway mark is an interesting exercise. I tried doing that a few weeks back. I sort of revise or review that statement, situation, whatever keywords I came up with in the previous year, every year, and see how it has changed over time. And it does evolve, it doesn't remain the same.
Yes.
And I think I want to go back to the coach I had when I was preparing for the MBA entrance exam. He was one of the best teachers I've had in my life. He was not a teacher, by the way. He used to be an insurance agent, insurance sales manager. Then he decided to start on his own, and basically went and opened up his own franchise for coaching institute in Kanpur. And yeah, so, but he did give a lot of valuable lessons. And one of the things I remember he said is, being part of a middle class family of not having to worry about the basic things in life. So what I see that if you listen to someone's life story,
Sorry, I'm not able to
it
hear.
okay. Let me switch. Better now?
Yeah, it's a lot better, Sudhendu.
Yeah, it's the
No, I think I again missed out. Hemant, are you able to hear? Am the only one who is not able to listen?
No, I
Hello?
was also not able to hear Sudhendu.
Okay.
It's normal that when you ask, can you hear me now? That question you hear very clearly and nothing after that. Sudhendu, there is no sound coming from your end in case you are talking. He was just about to share some real gem.
I know, that's why I'm holding on. No, and I loved what he said, that I have been thinking over this, and every year I come up with new parameters. Right.
Absolutely.
And we will reference that as well at somewhere in future. But it's a very important point.
Yes. Okay. I guess.
So I think we'll continue. Maybe Sudhendu, maybe there's a signal issue or something, and we'll circle back to him in a short period.
Sure.
So again, as you were saying, how you choose to use and structure the time on hand is at the heart of response to living longer. It's a heart of anything, but at least from a living longer standpoint, we always say that time is a fleeting resource, but let us also be honest that time is the only resource, right? Everything else is structured as a derivative of how you spend the time, correct? So in order to prepare for a happy 100-year life, these are some of the trends that we just want you to keep at a back of your head, right? This is like your background story, these are your underlying trends. Whatever we have to do, whatever we have to build is to be built on this certain trends that we will be talking about. So first, traditionally, we have been brought up with a 3-stage life because our parents went through a 3-stage life, right? 20 years of education, 40 years of working, 10 years of retirement, and that's broadly where we are, plus minus 5-10 here and there. But that's what the life we were planning for in our childhood, during our schooling, during our engineering MBAs and early part of this. But now, as we have moved into mid-40s, early 50s, we are now realizing, or it is dawning upon us, that we will have a multi-stage life. Hemant, you want to just? We will have a multi-stage life. Now, what does it mean to have a multi-stage life, right? We will have switches and twists and turns midway through the career. It's fairly difficult to change the education part of the life, fairly difficult to look at the older age beyond 70s and 80s, once you are almost on the verge of retirement, nothing much to change over there. But in between, we'll have 3, 4, 5 stages, right? We'll have multiple elements. We will have, but this is something that is coming to us out of the blue. We were never prepared for it. Fortunately, we will have our kids prepared for it. But from our perspective, as I think Anup was saying, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of what are the roles and work that we can look up to, this obviously being a shorter version, we are just highlighting some standard horizontal elements of the work in terms of who you are, and we are trying to get this aligned to who you are as a person, rather than what's out there at a tactical level. Do you want to be an AI professional or an artist? Is all different. That's something that you do. But essentially, from a portfolio of your time structuring, you are either exploring something, You are either educating yourself in the line that you have explored and you want to build something out of it, or you become an employee where somebody is paying you for the time, which becomes like an internship at certain age, and an employee at a certain different age. Do you become an independent contractor for providing a certain skill set and utilizing the skill set, or do you become an entrepreneur and create a business model out of it, right? Or you say, okay, how can I contribute in the social environment with a certain skill? So this we are saying is not from a specificity of what you can do, but this is the various roles or portfolio of how you would structure yourself. So what we are trying to say is, try to reinvent yourself, and we may have to do it over a period of time and again. Maybe in our lifetime, we may end up reinventing ourselves in 8 to 10 years. Maybe our kids will have to do it in 5 to 6 years, because the rate of change is accelerating at a much faster pace. And we have been, viewing this in our lifetime. So one of the other important thing I would like to highlight upon is recreation is more important than recreation, right? If we want to genuinely reinvent ourselves, rebuild ourselves, we will have to use some amount of our leisure time, stop on Netflix, try to learn something new. Even if you're trying to do Netflix, maybe there is a documentary that you want to see and improve your knowledge. And these are just some thoughts around focus on your health, relationship. I mean, it may not sound very appealing. Fortunately, COVID hit and we started appreciating it a bit more, right? I am just so happy in my mind that okay, I was thinking about these things in terms of relationships and health and other things 12-15 years back, right? And my batchmates in school, my batchmates of engineering and college also know how much time and effort I spend in terms of keeping those relationships going. Okay. Work-life balance. So we always, hear people talking about, I need to balance my work and life, right? And I mean, I have always been of the opinion that why is there a requirement for a balance? Why is work not an integral part of your life? Why do we have to think work as a punishment, right? Which you do so that you get something and then you try and enjoy your life, right? So so that was always been there in my mind, and we're just throwing it up so that you may also want to think about it from that standpoint. This is very important, right? 10 years back, if somebody takes a break, बोलेगा job से निकाल दिया होगा, पता नहीं क्या करेगा. There was a very different social norm around having a career gap, right? I mean, if somebody had a career gap of even 3 months, जो वो बंदा resume पे दे नहीं सकता, उसको job नहीं मिलेगी दूसरी, right? Because the HR will not allow that guy to be, taken forward itself. But now it is becoming a norm. Now it is becoming extremely acceptable where people say, यार मैं 3 महीने का 6 महीने का break ले रहा हूँ. I want to redo or I want to rethink on how I want my next phase of life, right? So reinventing your identity is extremely critical. Why are we saying that? Is because if you had a short life, right, then yes, you can always say, I started here, how far can I go, kind of a thing, right? But when you have 100 years, right, I don't see any human being, unless they had a genuine physical deformity, and there are exceptions to that as well, but there is any genuine reason why somebody would say, I could not achieve so and so things because I started off here, right? 100 years is a pretty long time. I mean, okay, we have all crossed 40, 50, whatever, right? But we still have another 30 years. And 30 years is also not a short period of time for us if we genuinely want to do something. And if we want to reach a particular place in life. And hence, we always say we should live by choice, not by chance. Yes, if you try to go along with the flow, then you will reach where you will reach, right? Then you can't reflect back in your life and say, oh, I didn't do this and I didn't do that, correct? But if we genuinely want to be someplace, we need to reinvent our identity, right? Hemant, you want to go to the next one? Options are becoming extremely valuable. Why are we saying options are valuable? Is because if you have a structured, predictable way of doing things, then you don't need options, right? Then you just focus on operating efficiency and effectiveness, right? But the moment you enter into a chaotic situation, you want to do A/B testing. You want to ensure that you have the options open and available for you, and they are available for you as long as possible, right? You don't want to, commit yourself to certain things or a certain path if you can keep the option open, right? Next one, Ahmed. And people will live into their, work into their 70s and 80s, right? It is no longer if they will end up doing that. The fantasy of early retirement is gone, right? Not from a financial standpoint. I'm sure a lot of us may still be able to afford financially a longer life, but finance will not be everything. There are a lot of other things, as Hemant was pointing out in a few of those slides, in terms of how living alone or spending time alone will become the norm. What do you do alone, right? You'll get into a depression if you don't have something to do, correct? The other trend that is happening is generational complexity. Now, why is that? This is extremely new, right? None of us are prepared for it. Most of us always thought कि ये बंदा मेरे से 4 साल बड़ा है तो लाइफ में मेरे से 4 साल आगे है, right? But the moment you have pivoting of your careers, of what you do, your work content, etc., you might tomorrow find somebody who is younger than you, who has spent 5 years, and you are just starting something in a new area of work or something new, right? So you might have contextual seniors who are age-wise fairly junior to you or much younger to you, right? So that is becoming a norm, so to say. The other thing that is happening, obviously, we are seeing in the region NEOM, but smart cities is been a thought that is happening across the world. But rather than only smart cities, I also want to give you this in terms of how clusters are arising. What do we mean by clusters, right? पुराने जमाने में बाजार हुआ करते थे जहाँ पे सब लोग जाके धंधा करते थे. Today we have elements like the Silicon Valley or the Bangalore ecosystem from a startup standpoint, or you have the gold souk in Dubai, which is there. So clusters will rise, right? COVID has also brought to the forefront the fact that we are still social animals, and while we can connect virtually, unless we have a face-to-face and a physical engagement, things generally don't move forward on the innovation graph. Operational graph can be managed through video conferencing, but not the innovation graph. Okay. So clusters will slowly rise where innovation hubs will start happening. We have a couple of them. There will be more which will come up. I don't know how many in Nagpur there is a new drone cluster that is coming in. So governments also realize that even within startups, if you want to get a certain area of a startup, significantly scale up and innovate, they're creating a drone cluster. So multiple organizations focusing on drone technology will live within that. So SEZ from a tax perspective was different, and the technology or a micro vertical specific clusters are now emerging. So if we have to start exploring the possibilities, right? What are we looking at? Why? Because if we have to now relook at what we are doing or how we are structuring this, then let's start exploring the possibilities. So when we are exploring the possibilities, we need to build a route, right? And I always say, like, be very simple. Google Map, मैं यहाँ हूँ, वहाँ जाना है, कैसे जाऊँगा, right? Let's not try and complicate too much. So मैं यहाँ हूँ is what, right? So who am I? What is my starting point? What's my destination point? What's the alternate routes? What are the relevant milestones that we have, and who will be the co-passengers in the journey, right? Because you're not going to be going alone. Okay. So once you establish those things, right, then the only thing that you have and the only choice that you have is to plan your time. because planning your time in the right way will help you recreate your life. Okay. Again, coming back to the same slide, how you choose to use and structure the time on hand is at the heart of response to living longer. It is only about utilizing, understanding, grasping what you have and how you want to use the time. So the broad framework that we will have as part of the Centennial journey is obviously things below the red line are tangible assets. And then above the red line are intangible elements of productive assets, vitality assets, transformative assets, your logic of life. All if we actually dig deeper into each one, each of us has our own logic of life, right? We all live by our own rules, our own assumptions in life. And with that, how do we build the personal path and navigate the path? So we come upon the assets part of it. We will, obviously there are two types of assets. All of us know that: tangible, intangible. Tangible is the money, house, whatever else that you have, which is on the side. We are trying not to focus on tangible assets at all as part of this whole journey. We believe that all of us are in a certain stage where they know how to manage and do whatever they want to do with that, right? But the important thing is the intangible part of the assets. There is no marketplace for that. There is hardly any substitutions that you can have, and they are fairly irreversible. You walk onto a path, very difficult to go back on the intangible side of it. Whether we look at productive assets, knowledge, reputation, the peers that you have, vitality assets, both mental and physical, from a health standpoint, balanced living standpoint, and then transformative assets. Now, obviously, even as part of the workshop and the program that we have, the productive and vitality assets we are again clubbing it into a single module and things like that, because people usually do spend a lot of self-introspection time on it. These are things because they directly relate to certain element of vitality, certain element of tangible assets. So, they are like the intermediate, and people are fairly comfortable with what we are talking about, that we don't want to we will spend time, but not too much time as we go along. Transformative assets obviously is there only a few people who genuinely introspect, are thinking about self-knowledge, tapping into diverse networks and openness to new experiences, right? Because if you don't have an exploratory bent of mind, you don't want to, genuinely be open to new ideas and things, you will live in your echo chamber and you'll continue doing that, right? So that's also very critical. As we said, tangible assets, multiple types, we want to just steer clear of that. Coming back again, we are doing 1 hour webinar, 1 day workshop, 1 year journey. So who are you, right? Very important question, which we said is very important. And even if you just take a step back in terms of how all of us introduced ourselves over here, or even in general, when we go to a certain place, we are in a new environment, somebody says, who are you, or ask something about ourselves, we typically end up saying, my name is so and so, this is where I work, as if work is the only thing that should define us as a human being. Correct? So we need to genuinely think about, who am I? How do we identify ourselves as? What do we peg our identity on is very important, because as the life becomes longer, we always as a human being want to have a single thread which runs across the string of pearls, right? In terms of saying, this is the necklace that I built. I had lot of pearls, lot of memories, but what was that string that went through it? And that's the identity part. If we have that as a fractured identity, or layoffs happen, people lose identity. Oh, I am a Googler is how many people will say. I am a Facebooker. I work here. I am from KPMG, right? I'm from Deloitte, right? But if you just take that away, and if you're not able to hold your own in terms of who am I, that's a very serious situation. Correct? So we need to rethink on who am I, and that will, even as part of the workshop and as part of the hurdles that and the qualification criteria that Hemant will be talking about, will become very important as this. So we need to rethink on who am I. Of course, the first thing that comes to who am I is the purpose, right? What's our purpose? Why do we do what we do? Why do we exist? And I'm pretty confident that all of us have thought about it hundreds of times. I'm not even saying once or twice. Hundreds of times we would have thought about it, And we need to, in some shape and form, we do try to also define it in various shapes and form. But this will be a good starting point for us to have as we move on to the workshop and this. Next. Now, when we are defining who am I, a very important element which some people may not have heard about, thought about, dig deeper into that is the cognitive biases, right? And we are just going to highlight one of them as we move along. So maybe in WhatsApp messages, maybe in some other places, we might have heard about how in a circus or in various places, a mighty elephant is tied with a thin rope, right? We all know what elephants are capable of, the kind of strength they have, right? But somehow with a small, wooden stick on the ground and a thin rope, they are able to hold the elephant in its place, right? Now, why are they able to do that? Is, if you go to the next one here, is that in that elephant's early childhood, they have been tied with a very heavy weight and a very strong rope and things like that, where the younger self of the elephant has tried to break through, but has not been able to break through, right? And somehow it sinks into his or her mind that I cannot break it. I may be able to lift 20 stones, but I can't break a thin rope, right? And somewhere along the line, when in the last 10, 12, 14, 15 years, I have been thinking about my 100-year life. I've always felt, how do I break free from this, right? In some shape and form, I have been, others I may still not have been able to do that. But this is very important that all of us realize that where we started off and the constraints we had as a kid, as part of the education, as part of the early employee cycle that we had, is no longer valid. Today is still the first day of the rest of our life, right? And what we can do with this, keeping in mind that there are 180 cognitive biases, which we will touch upon in much deeper aspect as part of the program. Even in the workshop, we will just touch upon a few. Maybe right now we have done one. There we will do around 5 of them, and then in the program we will do more. But it's very important that we understand the cognitive biases, because these are the filters that give us the illusion of free will, okay, and restrict us from knowing who we are. Next. So we do believe it's a time for change, and long life can become a burden if it is spent in misery. But if we structure our Hemant, next. If we structure our time in the right way, then we can have a better outcome. So why are we doing this? Essentially, we believe, and both me and Hemant have been done engineering, sales, implementation, change management, consulting, multiple things, right? And the core was, are we genuinely doing something, right? At the age of 60, what will I tell my grandkids? कि क्या किया तुम्हारे दादा ने, right? बच्चे तो सुनेंगे नहीं, right? I am very clear in my life where my kids are never going to listen to me, but the grandkids will, right? And what will I tell them, right? And fortunately, we do believe that this is something that we can genuinely add value to a larger social circle that we have, and that's why we are doing it. So the gift that we were talking about in the first slide is actually the gift of time you already have. What we are here to do is again ask the same question. How you choose to use and structure the time on hand is at the heart of response to living longer. To be or not to be is the question, of course. And here, if you just hold on, right, and we always have this choice, in terms of are we living a life to find the answer? Is life a question? Or is life a question and we are here to create the answer? Right? Are we living by chance? Or are we living by choice? And again, coming back to, I think what Anup had mentioned, right? Or Sudhendra, I think Anup had mentioned that, every year when he's introspecting, right? He's finding new thoughts, right? And I'll just touch upon this small incident that happened in mid-40s. So Einstein was a professor to the last year physics students, right? He gave them a question paper, which was the same question paper, same question, same full stop, right to the full stop. It was the same paper that he gave to the same set of students 1 year ago. So I just want to repeat it so that it sinks in. It is not the same question paper that he gave to, let's say, a third year student in 1944 and another third year student in 1945. No. He gave it to the third year students in 1944. When those students came to year 4 in 1945, in 1945, he gave the same paper to the same set of students in 1945 in the 4th year. Why did he do that? So when the student, the research assistant asked him, aren't these the same questions? So Einstein says, yes, but this year the answers are different. And I just want you this as, and the good thing is Anup already mentioned it in some shape and form, right? In our life also, when we introspect, what we introspected in when we were 20, the answers were different. When we are 30, the answers are different. 40, the answers are different. And in future also, the answers will keep on changing. And hence, we should ideally be proactively looking at this and changing the way we keep on structuring our time. So again, the Centennial journey, this is what we are trying to structure and bring the program to this. Hemant, the next one. Hemant, you want to just this one, if you just take this up.
Sure. So as we have been saying, the Lego blocks, the manual and the handholding. So we have come to the end of our webinar now. The various perspectives, concepts, the individual Lego blocks we have actually opened up in front of you. So you now have the visibility of the Lego blocks. The information and the awareness is there. And you can very well start thinking on it and start creating your path. Start giving a structure to it. In case you feel that, okay, let me take a little more help in terms of what the structure is, etc. We have the workshop at the end of the month. So there is going to be a full day in-person workshop in Dubai, full day 9 to 5 kind of a workshop on 24th February. And for those who are not in Dubai, outside Dubai, away in the US, I mean, the Indian ones probably could fly down, but the ones in US, UK, the in-person workshop is not possible. Then we do an online workshop, but the difference will be we won't do it in a single day because 8 hours online, and then this is going to be very intensive. So that would become very difficult. So we will split it across 4 sessions across the 4 Saturdays of March. So this is going to be the one-day workshop or a 8-hour workshop across 4 online sessions, in which the 4 modules, which is one being vitality assets and productivity assets, second being transformative assets, third is the restructuring of time, the whole concept and the meaning, the interpretation and brainstorming around how do we do it. And finally, what is the multi-stage life options that will be relevant for you, brainstorming again within the group, what can be the possible options, and you trying to figure out your own options. So at the end of these 8 hours of intensive brainstorming and thinking, you will have a self-evaluation of your own structure of time. You would also start looking at those different assets and start creating a plan for building them. And of course, you will start looking at your 100-year multi-stage life and start putting a structure to it. So that's going to be the objective of that 1 day or an 8-hour workshop. For those who want to stop at this point in terms of engagement with us, then you have got you've got a kickstart to these processes. You can go on do it yourself DIY mode, or if you think that okay, I might need help with this also, then we have a full year journey wherein we will be doing a deep dive into each one of these areas. Again, the productivity assets and vitality assets is going to be one module, transformative assets another, your logic of life. So we now go beyond these assets. So in the first 4 months, we do a complete deep dive into the assets. You create a long list of your assets. You also think about future. What are the other assets you could develop? With that, you now also have a view of your logic of life. We challenge your logic of life. You rethink your logic of life. How do you approach life? What are your perspectives, assumptions, and just in general approach to life? We take that and then you build your path. Again, why we have those your in the brackets is simple. While we can deliver a session to a group, these paths that you create or the assets which you build are very, very personalized. So while there will be a, let's say, a common session where we introduce the framework, a large part of the whole journey is going to be one-to-one sessions where Rishikesh and I are spending time with you alone to figure out things, hear you out, and help you structure your path, and then help you create a plan for navigating that path. And with all this, with all these 5 modules done in 10 months, the last 2 months of the year will be creating your framework and your structure of life. A very intensive journey all along where we will deep dive into all these concepts, get practical into planning, a lot of introspection, self-discovery sessions, brainstorming, workbooks, assignments, mini projects, including social initiatives, because we are social beings and we are at a point in life where we keep thinking about meaning of life, and a part of our meaning of life is also about what difference do we make to other people's life. So as part of the assignment, social initiatives will also be there. At the end of the 1 year journey, you have not only created your map for the 100-year life, you also have a working plan and you have already started implementing the plan. So that's going to be the focus. Of course, me and Rishikesh are not experts in all the different areas. So wherever needed, we will call in external experts and we'll have guest sessions by them who will help us kickstart in certain areas, and so on and so forth. So that's about the journey that we have been talking about, the Lego blocks, the manual, which is the workshop, and long-term journey. Of course, one thing very clearly, as I said, we are going to spend a lot of one-to-one time, one-to-one sessions with all of you, which means we're going to work with very few people. So our way of doing that is that every stage is not going to be just easy to move on. It's not like, okay, I'm interested in the workshop. What's the fee? I pay the fee and I get into it. No, there will be an assignment between these stages. And only when you complete the assignment do you actually qualify for it. So by tomorrow evening, we share with you an assignment that needs to be done. If you're interested in, irrespective of the interest, you do the assignment. Only when you complete the assignment do you actually can start talking about, okay, I'm interested in the workshop, can I attend it? Similarly, after the workshop, there will be a massive assignment. Only if you complete that, then you're thinking, okay, now can I join the journey? Because that assignment itself is a preparation for that next stage, for the workshop, for the journey. So I think that's from my end. And yes, we talked about the number of centenarians across the globe. We said there were 500,000 in 2020. In this year itself, 2024, in a span of 4 or 5 years, that number is going to touch 1 million. 2024 estimate is 935,000. By 2025, we would have crossed that number. So you can see how rapidly the number of centenarians is increasing around the world. This number is going to just skyrocket going forward with the advent of a lot of diagnostic advances made in the medical field. and so on and so forth, lifestyles improving, health consciousness improving, the chance that most of us would be touching a number very close to 100 or maybe even cross it, at least the healthier ones will cross it, is going to be very, very real. It's no longer just one of the statistics you hear around. It might be very, very true for us. With that, I can hand over back to Rishikesh. You're on mute, Rishi.
Sorry, again, as Hemant mentioned, in the previous slide, as he said, that the rate of centenarians is also doubling up at a faster pace, right? And this is all a cumulative impact of multiple parameters of healthier life, access to better healthcare, AI now coming in with diagnostic things, so many of them. What our parents couldn't do, most of us are first time people who have gone outside the country. So we all maybe studied in India, but are a lot of us are living outside. Just by the fact that, for example, I moved from Bombay to Dubai, I think I have already increased my lifespan by 10 years just by that one specific thing. I'm not even going into the depth of anything else that I have to do in life, right? And that itself, 10 years is 87,000 more hours and 50,000 more productive hours. Now, what do I do with that is up to me. Correct? Next one. So, we'll just leave you with one final thought, right? So there's this story, there is a construction happening. So a man is just walking past and he's talking to the worker. So the first worker is like, what are you doing? क्या कर रहे हो आप? So the guy is like, आप देख तो रहे हो मैं ईंटें उठा रहा हूँ, काम कर रहा हूँ, मजदूरी कर रहा हूँ, ठीक है? And goes to the next one. He's like, what are you doing? तो इमारत कुछ बन रहा है, कंस्ट्रक्शन, तो आई एम जस्ट देयर, इससे पगार वगार मिलेगा, आई विल हैव अ गुड फूड एंड ऑल, ठीक है? गोस टू द थर्ड वन, क्या कर रहे हो? मेरे भगवान का मंदिर बन रहा है, एंड all the three workers are doing the same activity, but the emotion, the mindset, and the approach towards why and what they are doing changes the entire sense of what is happening. So it's not just about what you do. We may all live 100 years, we may all do all the things, do work, do make money, have husband, wives, kids, grandkids, whatever else that we have, correct? But it's with what thought process we are living our life is a lot more important. And surprising, coming to the last slide, which brings us to the 100th slide for the Centennial journey. The only promise that Hemant and I can give you is that we will help you reconfigure your time, and we will help you reconfigure your mindset for living a happy 100-year life. That's the only thing that we can do for you, right? And with this, we think we'll stop. Hemant, we want to, we'll just take some feedback from people who are here, in terms of what did you think, good, bad, ugly. So we'll go one by one. Anupama, your view.
Thank you, Hemant and Rishikesh, for enlightening us about what is going to come in the future, and that too in a very near future. Because if I look at myself, for me, the first aspect of my future is how to define retirement. And I say never. I'm never going to retire. Because it's not about financial freedom. It's about how happy I'm going to do what I'm supposed to be doing. And if I'm happy working, I don't mind doing it till last breath. But what got me thinking today is, of course, wow, I'm going to have so much of time on hand yet. What I'm going to do with it. Yeah, I've started taking the baby steps, so I see myself a little bit ahead of what you people are doing. But then, of course, I don't mind the support as well. So it's something that I want to look forward to in the coming months.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Superb.
Thanks, Anupama. Sudhendu?
Is the audio okay? Should I change my
Bandwidth issue persists.
So we'll touch base with you, Sudhendu, one-on-one as well. I think that may be better.
Is it better now? Is it better now?
Yeah, this is better, Sudhendu. Sure.
Yeah,
Please go ahead.
it's not a bandwidth issue. It's I think my headset started. So yeah, I mean, good session, definitely. The thing that you made explicit through the session was the whole struggle for what do we need to focus on to optimize in our life. I think in addition to time, I agree, time management is extremely important, probably the most important one, but managing your energy levels is also pretty close to that. And then I think when you have a well-defined daily routine, a weekly plan, monthly plan, or something like that, then the energies also start falling into place. And going back to your mention of the yoga classes that you used to conduct, yeah, I think yoga is the ultimate answer to managing energy.
Correct. So we will be covering the energy part as part of vitality assets. Thank you, Sudhendu. Anand, you want to touch upon what was your feeling?
Yeah, I must say this has been a good opening salvo of sorts, if I could put it like that. Yeah, but yeah, definitely hitting the right spots. Correct. And I believe, like you just said, everybody is in that phase of life. You would have thought and done some good amount of self introspection. And based on each individual journey where they stand, I think what you've done is given back homework already. So that I'm sure most of us will again, after this session, would try to find some time out individually to kind of go through that, reassess and kind of remap kind of thing. What does it make sense or not? I certainly am in that position. I can confess to that. Right. So I'm taking back some points to ponder over. Correct. Yes. And yeah, the approach I like because it's touching upon all the aspects. And one of the key aspects is what do you do typically post your retirement, right? You got another, I don't know. And depends whether you want to retire or not. So it starts right back to what is the goal? Like most of our careers, when we go, everybody like an organization has a mission. So we need to again re-question our missions, our own personal missions, correct? Vision, mission, both. I think that's what that's how I would see it, right?
Absolutely.
Definitely some time for me to think through and, reassess, if I could say. And then, yeah, we are there. I have joined the WhatsApp group. So, yeah, you will hear from me.
Super.
Thanks, Anand. Pradeep, you want to touch upon with your feedback? Hello, Pradeep. Can you hear us?
Yep.
I think seems to be some problem, but I think we can, I think we have just overtouched 1 hour. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. And Hemant and I will reach out to you, maybe certain people that, take the individual feedback as well, right? And let's see how we can take things forward. Okay. Thank you so much. I hope it was useful to all of you.
Thank you, everybody. See you
Thank
around.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Hemant. Thank you, Rishikesh.
Thanks, Anupama.